Hey there, Adam, the tent guy here today with Suzanne Warner and Gary Warner from Tentnology. Hi, how you guys doing?
We are wonderful. Thank you so much for your attention.
It's good to have you on. Why don't you just get into a little bit about your guys selves and how you guys started Tentnology?
Well, Gary started it 47 years ago. I know it's hard to imagine a 10-year-old starting a tent business, but he's a professional engineer and designed a unique and patented sort of a dome, pop-up dome cover. And that was sold into the industrial utilities market. And then from there, it evolved into eventually what was the saddle span. And then he invented the cross cable peak tent, which was the marquee. And I, at the time, 33 years ago, was sitting up in Whistler. And I was in a cafe and I saw this really strange looking tent. It looked like a big Pringle potato chip. I thought, who would design something like that and make it? It's beautiful.
What a twisted mind.
Yeah. Who would that? So later that week in a bar, I met the crazy inventor of that structure, Gary, and we've been together ever since. And my background was in sales and marketing, in the hospitality industry, in the cosmetic industry. So I was able to bring sort of that party touch, the female feminine touch to these event and party tents. And that turned out to be a great thing because many of our first customers and very strong customers have been women. And they are looking for that extra little bit of attention to detail that, sometimes you tent guys have a tendency to overlook.
Right, we don't care.
If it's black webbing or, whatever.
Yeah, I've gotten out of the detail stuff. I tried to do drapery and stuff, but I realized after that year that me and my dudes are just a bunch of dirty dudes just doing dirty things. We don't want to be dealing with the finer details.
I've got to tell you, you're perfectly titled the tent guy. In our me 33 years, Gary 47 years in the tent industry, we've gone all over the world and met people all over the world, and there are tent guys. You have more in common with some of our clients in Germany or England or over in Australia than you actually have with your neighbor.
Right.
When you tent guys get together, it's a whole different breed. People ask us all the time how easy these tents are to put up. And I say, well, it depends if you wear shorts in the winter. If you like tools, equipment, getting your hands dirty, being physical, and being outdoors, obviously, I think there is a lot that has to be said for that.
Right. Well, I came up with it because everywhere we go, knock on the door, and then they say, "Mom, the tent guy's here," or "The tent guy's back there." So I was just known as the tent guy.
The tent guy, anyway. Good. I'm the tent gal. So
right. Cool.
I'd like to say, Adam, I looked at some of your videos since you contacted us, and you're doing quite a service to the industry. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Even though you don't have any of our tents.
No, I don't. Sorry. My market is a small market. So a lot of the things that I would like just won't go out.
Exactly. I think one of the things that we've been able to do is design and develop tent lines for different market sectors. So there are certain specific tents that really give a faster return on investment to the rental guys, the tent guys, because they're more neutral, they're a size that is easy to handle in various backyard, garden situations, and they don't make too much of a statement. The other markets that we sell into, which is event marketing, hospitality, they want something really different. They don't want a tent that looks like the rental tent that they could get for weekends. They want it to look very different, distinctive, and attention getting. So that's why you see the full array of our products. And as much as you tent guys would like them, they may not be the one that's going to, because it's really all a matter of return on investment. You buy a piece of equipment, it's a money-making machine now. And by selecting a tent manufacturer, besides a style and a look that your customers will like and you'll be able to rent a lot, your next decisions as tent guys is which system sets up faster, which system warehouses easier, which system has more interchangeable parts, unique parts. So, you know, those kinds of decisions when you're looking and buying and shopping for a tent are important because you're going to be living with it hopefully for a very long time.
Right. And I think it's interesting that you guys do both. You guys sell to rental people with things like your Marquee and your Palladian. Am I saying that right?
Yep, yep, very good.
And then some of your fancier things go direct. So you sell direct to like hotels and event places.
Right.
And
This morning, we just sold a beautiful big 5,000 square foot saddle span to the Buffalo Symphony Philharmonic
nice,
Orchestra. And it's lovely. And it's actually their second one. They had one for 20 years, you
nice.
know, which is really remarkable. And they've come back for their upgraded version. One of the things that is unique about Tentnology is we actually have more engineers on staff than salespeople. So we're constantly improving. The engineering department is always looking at new technologies and ways to make the product faster, safer, easier, and, you know, more unique. And to that end, Gary developed a software program 33 years ago, and we've been working on it ever since. And it's proprietary. Not most tent companies don't have this. It's actually one of the only few tent CADs in the world. And what it does, it takes our designs, or we put in the design, and it applies the wind load, snow load, all the stress loads on the tent. And once we have that worked out for what it needs to be, then that becomes a pattern. And then that pattern goes into production and is computer generated patterning and design. So we end up getting a structure that has been engineered and is functional.
Cool.
And that's unique because a lot of tent companies have a tent designer, then they send it to an engineer, and then the engineering firm does the analysis on it and then sends it back to the manufacturer, and then they produce it. So we do everything in-house, and consequently, we're able to do it rather much quicker.
And when the computer is telling our PhD engineers what the forces are, with all the years of experience me and my superintendents have, we say maybe no, that's not the way it is. Look again, and we can calibrate basically with our experience. We can calibrate the software. We have done that, and now we get really good results, excellent results. First off, you know, without resorting to experimentation, we still experiment with them and field test them, but it's much more rapid
and streamlined. Another point, we started all of this 33 years ago with this engineering software, and it's becoming a major payoff right now because your clients, your audience will start to realize more and more and more all these authorities, whether it's your town council or you know, a local building inspector, they are asking for engineering certification and documentation all the time now.
Right.
You know, 10 years ago, you could put a 20 by 20 tent up anywhere and it was not a problem. Now we get calls every month from clients like yourself who are about to put up an event, and some building inspectors come by and they need to have local authorities, you know, stamp it and engineer it. So we're all set up for that. We have all of the documentation and analysis and reports that the other engineers can understand. So it definitely helps at the end. And I noticed you had said about buying on one of your broadcasts, buying schlock or not very good quality products versus quality products. And this kind of aftercare engineering support is a major factor. You know, if you spend a little bit more, you know, that's the kind of service that you can expect. We don't do your personal engineering for that event in your town, but we provide your engineers with the documentation that they need to certify it.
Right. Cool. Now, is this program running on 33-year-old computers?
Absolutely not. We've always invested. We actually live on a tent farm. So the fun thing about us, we have an organic garden. We've always had animals around. So it's quite a family organic bit of a business. But Gary's always invested with the latest technology, our computers. We are ISO 9000, which is a quality assurance process, which we can talk about. We have the software program that we've developed, and we have a very comprehensive ERP system. It's an enterprise planning system where all of our bill of materials, engineering masters, purchase orders, potential sales and production, right through to accounting, all is functioning on a very sophisticated software, which really helps us run the company. So as much as it's ma and pa on the firm, it also is quite advanced and progressive.
Right. Good. I was just joking about the 33-year-old computer.
Right. Well, you never know how that happens out there, but
Right.
we need the tools.
Right. So thanks for all that for the introduction in the background. So in today's kind of, pandemic situation, everyone's kind of down and upset and worried. So I wanted to do a video today of some cool, unique things that you guys make and just show some people some cool things. So I guess we'll first get into the Pringles chip saddle span.
Oh, very good. That's iconic. That actually evolved out of the dome-shaped pop-up tent that Gary had developed.
It started off as a large structure for for maintaining equipment in the woods. Very large wood cutting equipment like kokum, tree harvesters, and things like that. Very big equipment. And it was a big baby carriage wood type of thing that erected over the top of the equipment. And but then word got around that we had this thing, and somebody at a festival wanted a stage cover, and we thought, well, it's kind of ridiculous to put this big baby carriage up. So why don't we get rid of all the ribs in between and just leave two on the ends and put that up? And that's what we did. And it was a great success, but we saw that just one tube was a little tricky to put up. Once it was up, it was extremely stable, but putting it up, people could make errors. So we decided to make a truss out of that. And that's why there's a truss system on the larger ones. And the smaller ones still have a single tube thing. But that's how it started off. And it was, my brother was very good at drafting and that kind of engineering. He's advanced engineering, and so the patterns were made like that. Now it's all made with our software, and it's precise. You won't see a wrinkle in the whole thing, and it's a beautiful thing. Right now, we've made the latest development is we use Ketter rails, which are put onto the fabric, the membrane, and then that is bolted directly onto the frame. So it saves 1/3 of the time installing and erecting these and removal of these things, which when you multiply it out by the number of units that go into the marketplace is a huge saving for humanity. You're able to do much more with less. And
efficiency.
I think then as those markets evolved, we sell that particular structure into a lot of towns, cities, and communities because it's multifunctional. You can keep it open like a big Pringle potato chip or sunshade. You can put one end on it and make it like a stage cover, or you can enclose the whole structure completely and have a special event tent. The acoustics are amazing because of the shape of it. And then there's also two different kinds of ends. There's a vertical end, so you can actually have solid sets of double doors going in, or a curved end. And in those ends, there's removable infill walls. The other development with that product is that you can join these together with different joiners. So you can do a duo span, tri-span, quadrispan, pentaspan. So you can start to get huge, like our S5000 pentaspan, which is on our site, sold to the University of Ottawa. You can get like 27,000 square feet of completely free span space with amazing sight lines and acoustics. But whoever operates and owns that has actually 5 separate stage covers because each one of those units is standalone. And the system comes in 5 different sizes. The big one is so huge, it requires cranes and it's 100-foot wide and massive. So we don't recommend that for the rental market. But we do have some smaller ones. And the one that I particularly like for the rental market, we call the S1000. It's 1,000 square feet. And it's excellent for a 6-man band underneath it. And it only takes a couple of hours to set up. It does have a tubular frame rather than a truss frame, but it is really fast and easy. And these saddle spans only have literally 4 parts. They've got base plates, apexes, The trusses are all identical and the fabric. So
Right.
it's quite amazing. They can also be ballasted. A lot of tents, pole tents specifically, or a trapeze, which we'll talk about, really can't be ballasted. They really need to get tension down, into the earth, where the saddle spans can be ballasted. So it's really quite multifunctional, and they're relatively easy to transport. So many of them have gone on tours, and they're much faster to set up, in fact, than tent halls.
Right. Yeah, the common pictures I see with it is as band stages. I've seen a few weddings under there, which is cool that, it doesn't have any sides on this one particular wedding I've seen. It's just open. And then the two legs, I guess you'd call them, come down to the ground.
Yeah.
And that looked really cool. And then, like you said, put them all together. And then from the top, it looks like a flower, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. And Gary and the team they're engineered for 115 mile-an-hour winds, sort of for the base units. Some, if you're leaving them open, and can be higher, 120 mile-an-hour. So they're very, very secure, stable, and well engineered. Everything's ground assembly, so guys aren't climbing up into the 35 feet up into the air. It's all pulled on the ground, and you pull it up sort of like a clamshell. It's quite dynamic, and it drops back down very quickly.
Right.
So it's a spectacular, lovely little structure.
Very cool. The next one I want to get into is not as unique, but it's definitely needed in some situations, is the unislope. And you have no idea. I've called people that make my tents and said, yo, I need a unislope for this particular thing. And they're like, we don't know how to make that. We can't make that. I have a particular installation where unislope would be perfect, but the guys I buy it from don't make it. So how'd you get into the unislope? Was it someone like me who just needed something like that, or?
Again, our branded market, our event marketing market, I think there was a client, Mobil, the oil company, and it was for one of the big races in Austin. So a lot of the more creative, challenging designs come from the market. Guys like you or agencies say, we want something different with a different profile. And the Unislope gives you a lot of advertising real estate, because you've got the slope to put your custom graphics on it. But really, the Unislope is just a version of our T-span. We have a free span structure, like many tent companies, 30 foot, 40, 50, 60 foot wide, which makes ours unique. It's the same parts can be used for a 60 foot wide. But the Unislope is just reconfiguring the hard parts. And we've also done another version of it, the T-peak. So you get the free span interior with these beautiful vaulting peaks, looks like our marquees. And it gives it a much more festive architectural look than a regular A-frame standard tent hall. But it's all using the same parts. It's just the fabric components are supported in different ways. But it's the T-span, T-peak, or Unislope.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. And then another cool one, which I've only seen pictures of, so I'm going to describe it as a hybrid between like a frame and a pole, because it looks like it has frame sections and also looks like it has tension ropes, the Cubit.
That's very interesting. We love it. The Cubit really is, again, one of those unique structures that may not be the best for tent rental guys, because it's rather expensive and a little bit difficult to put up. But the people for event marketing, VIP chalets, something that's going to be up as like a visitor center. We've sold a lot to wineries, that want more of an architectural look to it. It sort of started, we had similar designs in development, but the American Olympic team wanted to take a tent on tour. And they showed us these, you've all seen them in parking lots and shopping malls and plazas, these big flying sails on posts, these
Right.
fabric panels. And that's what they wanted, except you can't take posts that are 10 feet down into the ground and, permanent installations on tour. So Gary came up with a portable version of these flying sails. And like
the idea was to make it a square plan view format so that it was modular and you could keep on and on with flat sides, right? And yet combine that with the saddle span, ease of installing a saddle span, which you just pull up and provide the tensile roof. And it's good. It works.
And it's really great in high winds. And like the saddle span, there's various configurations that you can use. You can have the open where it's just the sails on top for shade. You can enclose the triangle sections on each side with a gable section. I like to keep those in a clear fabric. It looks beautiful. And then you can enclose it with walls. So we did an installation last summer for the whole season where they had one of the pods enclosed as the sales room and two left open where people would come into the space. So again, you can reconfigure it and play around with it that way.
Right, and they connect too, right? You can
they join together. They actually look nicest when they are in an array. You can do L shapes, you can do big U shapes, long, so you can go in any sort of configuration.
A famous architect told me years ago that the idea with architecture was to surprise and delight. And so if you walk around the tent and you keep seeing different shapes by walking around it, you're surprised. And we hope delighted. And
right.
That's basically one of the principles that I use in designing them.
Good. That's cool. That's a good advice you got from him, because you don't want, I just have rectangle tents and square tents and they all look the same no matter what. So sometimes it is nice to have something interesting, which on to the next one. The Splish-splash is something that I could definitely use in my market, because we have various events that are kind of big in my city where it's like a race where you can have a registration or drink tent. The Splish-splash would be great for that.
That is not necessarily an original look or design, but it's very, very attention getting. What makes ours a bit different is that we don't use a nylon based fabric. We use a vinyl so that it's able to be printed on. The challenge came to us that printing on those nylon versions of that type of a shaped structure really was not acceptable. They needed to have it printed because clients want custom branding. We actually have a whole department in our company that brands and prints on the fabrics. So we've experimented with that for the last 20 years and have got that down quite well. But that Splish-splash is fast and easy to set up, extremely attention getting. And it's a standalone. It doesn't connect very well with other units, but certainly it's fun.
Right. No, I see it. The place that I'm talking about is called the Utica Boilermaker Race, and I could see getting it with the branding on there and having it at the beginning of the race and at the end of the race. And it's like I said, the registration tent or something like that. It'd be really cool.
Speaking of that, we also tell our rental clients, and we've got over 1,000 of them internationally, is you can resell tents. You're the tent guy in that market. You don't necessarily always have to rent them a tent, because they will find us or another tent manufacturer if the end user has determined that it's time for them to own their own tents. Rental is no longer feasible. They want something new and different. You tent guys can call people like us and resell. We usually give a trade discount, and you can sell to local companies and do branding. So you can take your marquee inventory and hold 4 or 5 different colored custom branded tents of 20 by 20. So you have all the hardware that you're using for the season. But when that local client who wants, as you mentioned before, a Harley Davidson orange and black tent, you can bring that out and they pay for those elements as well. But you can remember, as tent guys, you can also sell tents.
Right.
Besides just rent them.
Yeah, I made that mistake 2 years ago. Some local company wanted to put up a structure tent, and I just directed them straight to the manufacturer. And the manufacturer was like, "You should have sold it. You would have made 10 grand on this with the prices we give you."
Right.
So.
Yeah, there's different ways that those deals can be structured. It's best sometime that we deal directly with the end user, but we always keep in mind the people that brought us that business and work out some sort of commission structure or, profit for them as well.
Right. Continuing on with things that can actually be used every day in the rental industry and my industry and my market, the trapeze. tent.
Yes, we really want to promote this into the American market, and it's difficult because we can't show that particular tent inside at trade shows. It needs to be anchored into the ground, so it's difficult on American Rental Association.
They get upset when we bring out the jackhammers and the drills to drill into the concrete.
Right.
But there's over 500 of them in England. They do really well over there. In fact, I just sold one this week to another company in England. And they like it because 30 by 40 trapeze takes up less space than one of our 20 by 40 marquees, which also itself takes up very minimal space for packaging and transportation. And it's very, very fast to put up. There's no aluminum, there's only the poles, so there's no frame to it. And the cost in fabric structures and tents is in the amount of aluminum in the tent. So the trapeze doesn't have very much aluminum in it.
It is a difficult tent to make, to fabricate, because of all the extreme curves in it. There's a lot of fabrication to it. I never wanted to do it, but our clients in Europe, in England in particular, kept calling and pestering us that we should fix the one that existed from Eureka, I think. And so I said, I called up my friend Todd Dolan, who had designed it originally for them, and we discussed it. There was no issue. I said, I want to pay for any licensing or anything. That was all dismissed. So I fixed it, and I made it good for high wind. I just made it better. That's all. Just reinforced here and there, and fixed the damn thing. Repatterned it.
And you can
I made various sizes of it. So 30 by 40, I think, a 20 by 30, and 20 by 20, and so forth.
And they join and connect together. There's like a lemon wedge shaped connecting gutter. And there's pictures on our website. We've had a client in England who we've got pictures of who put like 8 of them together. The other thing about that tent, which is unique compared to other tents, it's very loungy. It's got a lower roof profile. When you're in it, you're in the tent. It's in your peripheral vision. And one of the things with festivals, we are very close to Coachella from where we're broadcasting here today. And a lot of these events are creating furniture for events that are very loungy, couches.
Right.
It's got a different vibe, so that it's sort of like a tension tent is in that category too. A lot of companies and a lot of people really love these tension tents, which are organic and they flow nice. The tension tent, those stretch tents, the stretch tents are maybe not the best for our climate in North America. So the trapeze looks like one of those stretch tents, but is stable, engineered for the 60-mile-an-hour winds, and it's completely 100% rainproof. But it's definitely a good profit center, I think, for the rental guys. You don't need a lot of crew and staff. 2 guys can set up a 30 by 40. You just again have to anchor into the ground.
Yeah, actually, one man can do it. Just a matter of
time.
You roll out the tarp, and the marks are on it, the holes are in it where you have to anchor. You put the anchors in on that tarp, roll out the fabric, put the attach on the winches along the side, the anchor winches along the side to the stakes that you've driven in. That's the hardest part, is driving the stakes in. So you need a bully boy with you to drive them in.
Right.
And then you roll out the fabric and put the poles. They're all sleeved together, put them in. And then when they're all in, which is really quite an easy job, then you just go to the side anchors and start tensioning them up. And you do that around, you keep on going around, tensioning them up. In 5 minutes, you look up and the thing is beautiful.
Right.
It's just like that.
So the tarp, I saw in the video the tarp had holes in it where things were supposed to go. You guys actually provide the tarp?
Yeah, that's part of
okay.
it.
Because that's one thing I hate, that I've had several tents where you have to use a measuring and jig and thing, and I'm like, I don't want to spend half an hour before putting the tent to do that.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, that's a good point though. And that's part of, the technical difficulty or challenge of installations is, surveys. You have to be quite accurate. And,
The problem with a surveyed tarp is, of course, if there's a wind blowing, you've got to weight it down on the windward side because the thing is flopping around. So it's not without its challenges, but once you get used to that, you weight it down and put the anchors in, away you go. It's really easy.
I just bought Airbnb, a bed and breakfast that's also going to be a wedding venue, and the trapeze seems like a good tent, like you said, like a lounge area. Like there's a big yard, I could put it out there and just have wicker furniture under there. And
low furniture. It's sort of vibey. You don't have to decorate because the undulating curves of it create the really nice ceiling space. You don't have to put liners or any silly frou-frou stuff in it. It's just cool.
right. So now on to one of your more interesting tents to me, which just is a crazy tent, is the Vortex. It's a tent without a peak.
Right.
What I wanted to do there, Adam, was give all those thousands of people out there, the owners of our marquee tent, an option to do with that same frame to create something totally different. So all they need to do is buy the cover, put that on say a 20 by 20 frame, and boom.
You got a different look. And again, that
a different structure.
And that was driven by the event marketing people because our cross cable peaked marquee has been so successful, ours and our competitors, that a lot of these brands don't want them. They don't want them on, whatever the festival or event is because it's not unique looking enough. And they want tents that don't look like tents is what we get asked all the time. So the Vortex gives that option. It's a tent that doesn't look like a tent. And when we brought it to the American Rental Association show, all of you tent guys came out with these great suggestions. Great, we can put it under this balcony, and there's this big tree one of my clients has that we could never put anything above it, and underneath it. So
we didn't think of all that.
Yeah, there's all these other applications, but it's and it can also connect and join together. We did the first time we introduced it at a show in England. We had 4 of them with all the conical vortex downspouts going into the center. So it looked really architectural, again, very, very cool, but it's really fast and easy and very inexpensive. It's the same price basically as our 20 by 20 marquee and even less parts.
Right. I actually did a medical tent a few weeks ago where it was going to be in this covered parking garage kind of thing. And she had told me that the height was a certain height, and we showed up with a 10 by 10 and we go to put the cable or the center peak on the cables, and it just wouldn't fit. So I had to just leave the tent flat. The cables are holding the tent up. But this would have been a good for that. It doesn't need a center pole on the cables. It would have just fit in there just fine. Right now I got a saggy looking top. The top doesn't come down because the cables are holding it, but it doesn't look that great.
Exactly. So this way you have it looking great and something different.
With what you have, the rain can.
No, he's inside.
Oh, yeah, it's under a parking garage, but it still is a little weird. So with that downspout, do you usually attach some sort of hose to bring the water further away?
Yeah, I mean, you can put any number of plumbing fittings on the end there and adapt it to either run a pipe away or put it under the floor, have it run away.
I did see that picture of the 4 together. Is that what you guys did? Was run some plumbing away so it doesn't obviously just
we just left a whole open section in the flooring. It was a floored site. It was
on grass,
and it was on grass. So the center we just left out the flooring there, so any water would just go underneath the floor.
Oh, okay, cool, very nice. And on to more traditional, something that a rental company would buy every day, your pole tent, I don't know how to say it.
The Palladian. Actually, that's a really good to discuss because Gary never wanted to do this.
I didn't. I really didn't want. I said it's been done. Like George Burns said. Remember George Burns, the comic?
Yeah.
He said, "Diane, it's been done. Not interested."
Right. So, you just wanted to be making cool things.
It's been done. Anchor was doing a nice pole tent. Eureka, everybody was doing a nice pole tent. So why would I want to do it? But then with playing around with Kidder, we came up, and one of the challenges with the pole tent is you have this messy peak All the seams go up to the peak. That's for structural reasons, for joining reasons, and so forth. But with a ketter, joining ketter and figuring out a system of that ketter where water would not leak into the thing, I could do it join the low parts. Well, if I could join the low parts, then I didn't have to make the tent so high. You don't make the tent so high, then it doesn't gather as much wind, doesn't take as much wind force. So then you can use smaller, shorter, and smaller posts. And so away you go, a whole bunch of, and you could only anchor it you could anchor it only 20 feet on 20-foot centers rather than 8-foot or 10-foot or whatever. So you have a nice view all around. It's a much better feeling. The owner of the Empire Polo Club here, I see he has it up. We provided one for him for his festivals and for Coachella and so forth. He has it up on his own property permanently there. He likes it.
Yeah, it's available in a 40-foot and a 60-foot wide, and expandable in these 20-foot bays. So as Gary mentioned, that's half of the anchorage that you need for regular pole tents, which have bays every 10 feet. So
Right.
you have half the anchorage, half of the guy lines, half of the poles again. And because we've continue to develop using keter, however you want to say it, the sidewalls actually keter in. So you can get a tension sidewall in a pole tent, which is new and revolutionary, because every other pole tent, you just have a sort of a laundry line, a line that you clip on the walls to, and they flutter around. So this way you can keter the walls in and tension them, and it's unique.
Wait, so there's a keter. We say keter in the States. It's okay.
Yeah,
A keter piece.
wall system.
No, to connect the sections together. There's like a long 20-foot keter.
And it's in the valley, the keter strip connection, so you don't have lace lines. And a regular pole tent, you have to lace the sections together, and then you've got to cover that lace line with sort of an ugly flap. And
Right.
That never looks attractive, and it gathers a lot of water and gets dirty. So what we've done is you just ziplock those sections together. For people that don't know, basically keter is a ziplock, like a ziplock baggie, where you slide in a beaded edge of the fabric into an extrusion. So that's how the palladium joins together. So it's sturdier, less prone to human error, and faster. And it looks really slick and neat. You don't have any of these, floppy sections to cover off the lace line.
By the way, on the subject of pronunciation of keter, I thought I'd check with the originators. I asked the Germans, how do you pronounce this word? Keter? No, keter.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Right.
With a German accent, keter.
Keter. That keter rail that goes up, how obviously can't be 40 feet long. Is it sectional, and then you put it together on site and then slide the tent in?
Yeah, the sections of keter, you slide in one section and the next, right? The keter sections of a 40-foot wide are in sections.
Yeah, they're in manageable sections, 20-foot. They're in standard sections, so we can use them on the sides or the top and so forth.
20-foot section keter.
Yeah, and then attached together. That's one of the challenges. One of the big challenges of tent design is to make it so it's easy to assemble, take apart, so that if you've forgotten a part at home, you don't have to drive 50 miles back to pick up another part. You can use something that you've got on the site, things like that. We try to keep that in mind when we're designing these things.
Right. I think I did not know that's how this one went together, because I was looking at the other crazier tents. I don't care how it looks. I know you're a bit into the engineering and beauty of it. I care about that lace line. That lace line sucks and takes a long time. It's about the longest part of setting up the tent.
And they're also quite well engineered for wind load. We have one over in Norco, California, which is right in the path of the Santa Ana winds. And, it really takes a beating, and has stayed up at this sports facility for years now. Yeah, about 6 years, and it functions really well. Again, because Gary said the peaks don't have to be as high, so, the performance in high winds is better.
Right. Us rental guys, we care about fast. Obviously we care about what it looks, but we care about fast a lot.
Sure,
you're absolutely right. And Adam, I want to add, back to the saddle span, at one of the last trade shows we were at a year or so ago, I was participating and putting it up, and this is nonsense doing it the way we're doing it. And everybody out there is doing it the same way because that's the way we've done it. That's the way we designed it. So I decided to make a change, a small change, and it's resulted in 1/3 saving in time. It's, when you have to sweat it out on the job site, in the
Right.
heat or the rain or whatever, at nighttime doing these things, you start to think.
Yeah, definitely.
Necessity is another invention. Yeah.
So yeah, our structures are forged in not only our minds, but on the job in the field. That's where it starts. And then we analyze and so forth and do all those things that are necessary for code officials and all that stuff. Incidentally, another thing is I disagree with the code system that they're using now, trying to micromanage it. Since when do they know better than a tent rental guy that's been doing it for 40 years?
Right.
They don't. The answer is they don't. And they're trying to micromanage these things. So I disagree with it entirely. But we provide the documentation anyway. It's not that we want to, look better. And it's not a competitive thing. It's just that's what we do because we're engineers and that's what we do. That's all.
Right. One of the things that gets me about codes in some of the towns around me is the tent cannot have any sides on it. It's just an open tent. And we have to have 2 exit signs on it. And I say, if the exit's everywhere, just look around you. Why do we have to have a specific exit sign?
I have a funny story about that. We were at the IAPA show in Orlando, and we had the big saddle span up, and there's no more open tent than the saddle span. I mean, it's huge, open. And the fire marshal came in and said, we have to have exit signs on this.
Right.
I couldn't believe it. So
that end and that end.
And no smoking signs,
and no
right?
smoking signs and exit signs. So I went to one of these novelty shops so they have in Orlando, the tourist trinket shops. And I found all these signs that look like safety signs, but it's like no farting zone and zombie zone and no idiots allowed and on and on. There was like 24 of these really ridiculous formal looking signs, no smoking, but it's a joint. And so anyway, I brought it back and I slapped all of these up on the tent side, including the official exit sign. And everybody just thought it was hilarious, but I couldn't stand how ridiculous the whole thing was.
Right. Yeah, there's 2 exits. One there.
Didn't show up anymore.
No. I know. Some of the stuff is crazy, but some of it is needed. We almost put a stake in a high-powered line underground. So, that's good to have codes and the town come out and do that.
Absolutely. And that's another thing. There's been accidents. You always look up. We've had a crew that walked a peaked tent into live electrical wires. You're right. We've had water mains go because of anchoring into the ground and electrical wires. So, those are important things to remember. And I'm sure you address them on your podcast.
We try to make them passively safe. We changed a high grade aluminum flag staff to much cheaper plastic post. And that made, if somebody hits it, hopefully it's not going to short out and across it.
Right.
There's no guarantee either at high voltage, 12,000 volts and so forth in the rain. But we try to make it as passively safe as possible. Stakes in the ground, they're really hard to deal with that. And then when you have crew, basically with crew, they should be paid well, good, intelligent people who think before they drive a stake or whatever. Nothing beats common sense.
Sure. I want to talk about one last tent. It's not as sexy as the other ones. They're everywhere. Your marquee. It's from the story you guys told me. It seems like you guys kind of invented it and everyone copied you. But what I've noticed on your marquees is you have made them very versatile, where you can instantly change like the branding or the color of them, right?
Well, there's a couple different features. Number one, we have 28 sizes and shapes. We've got a patent on the triangle and the diamond, and of course we've got hexagons. So for the tent rental guy, what that means is that you can turn corners. If you've got a pool area and you need to do a 45-degree turn or different angles, you can use these triangle sections that join up to the other sections. So there's no, there's rain gutters and diamonds and triangles. So that's very important, in all the different sizes, and all the sizes have interchangeable parts. So all of the 5 sizes of hexagons, all those corner castings work on all the sizes, and the tubing is all interchangeable and so on. But we, as you know, in the rental industry, you need to have as neutral inventory as possible. If you have a blue and white tent, you end up at a Coca-Cola event and they want red and white,
Right.
green and white. So colors are sort of out, but people want something that may look a bit more festive or is branded without having to pay for the cost of a fully branded top. So we've developed a spanner, which is a banner that goes across the eave of the tent that's interchangeable. We have a Viscount sash that goes over across the angles of the top. We've got these pennant flags, and something that's really an important little accessory that's not used very much is guy sails. So you've got your guy lines, and you should always have guy lines. It's a safety and stability factor, but people worry about them as trip hazards and so on. So it's just a very simple mesh PVC plastic triangle sail that goes between the guy line and the leg post of the tent. And it looks very attractive and, makes the whole thing have a bit more attention getting. So we have a client in Belize who has 4 different beverage lines. And for each of the beverage lines, he's got custom printed spanners, custom printed these triangular guy sails, as well as these Viscount sash, as we call them, and these jousting flags. They're larger than our regular standard flags. So he has a fleet of 100 basic white 20 by 20 marquees and hundreds of these optional color-coded accessories that make it look much more attention-getting, much more customized without the expense of customizing. So those are definitely some things that the rental guys can benefit from. If you want to get a spanner for that particular client, you can print it up. Probably a printer in your town can print it up. It's not that big of a deal, but the client ends up paying, and then your profit. And it's a little tiny profit center, but it's very effective.
You guys, it was very great having you on, and I appreciate it. And it's very interesting, some of the things you make. I'm gonna have to look more into the Palladian for the time saving.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we thank you very much for your attention, and keep doing what you're doing, and we'll direct a lot of our people to your site. I had a client yesterday who was looking into starting in the tent rental business, and after I did my spiel, I mentioned the American Rental Association and your site, because I think you've got a lot of good information, and you can tell you're passionate and you love it, and that's the most important thing. We do too.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Delightful talking with you.
You too. You guys have a good day.